готовы начать сессию «Центральная Азия на перепутье, конкуренция или партнерство». Пожалуйста, займите ваши места в зале. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start panel discussion Central Asia strategic choices, competition or partnership. Please take your seats. Уважаемые дамы и господа, свою работу начинает сессия «Центральная Азия на перепутье, конкуренция или партнерство». Dear ladies and gentlemen, we are starting panel discussion Central Asia strategic choices, competition or partnership. Пожалуйста, приветствуйте на сцене модератор, председатель исполнительного комитета, исполнительный секретарь СНГ Сергей Лебедев, директор Института стратегических и межрегиональных исследований при президенте Республики Узбекистан Элдор Арипов, руководитель Центра ближневосточных исследований ИММО имени Примакова РАН профессор Ирина Звигельская, заместитель директора ИММО имени Примакова РАН Станислав Жуков, почетный научный сотрудник исследовательского центра Observatory Research Foundation Нандан Унникришнан, председатель агентства по стратегическому планированию и реформам Республики Казахстан Кайрат Келимбетов. Please welcome on the stage moderator, chairman of the executive committee, CIS executive secretary Sergey Lebedev, director of the Institute for Strategic and Interregional Studies under the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan Eldor Aripov, head of the Center for Middle East Studies of the Primakov National Research Institute of World Economy and International Relations Professor Irina Zviagelskaya, Deputy Director for Scientific Work of the Primakov National Research Institute of World Economy and International Relations Stanislav Zhukov, Distinguished Fellow at Observer Research Foundation, New Delhi, Nandan Unnikrishnan, Chairman of Agency for Strategic Planning and Reforms of Republic of Kazakhstan Kairat Kelimbetov.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, уважаемые участники.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear participants, attendees of the Primakov reading. I would like to express my gratitude to the Institute of International Global Economy and International Relations for this invitation to this forum and for attention to the topic we are going to discuss about the activity and the choices for the Commonwealth of States. And I am an executive secretary of the executive committee for the last 10 years. That's my topic. I live it, I breathe it. And when I look at Kairat, and we go back a long way, over 10 years. So what's there for me to say? When I learned about the question we're going to discuss, the Central Asia strategic choices, actually first it caused some doubts in me. Why? Because the Central Asia is central because it takes the central place in the Eurasian continent, and I would like to stress, comment that Central Asia has been growing its presence in the political life, in economic affairs, and hence we observe higher attention to Central Asia, to staying in touch with the states of Central Asia, and just take the fact that over the last few years, as you know, many formats appeared involving the representatives of states of the Central Asia, and including the foreign ministers' meetings like 5+1. 5+1 form, that 5 plus Russia, 5 plus the US, 5 plus China, and the last meeting, if correct me if I'm wrong, a month ago in Xi'an, and the same format exists with South Korea, with Japan. So the interest is growing to this region, and this interest is well-founded, because this is the growing region, growing states gaining strength, and it's a fast growing region in terms of population and economic indicators, and so I'm sure that many people who watch this region actually are tempted to talk about competition. But I would rather replace this word by kind of more peaceful contest. Competition is not bad. Competition in a good sense of this word. It should exist in a positive sense in the positive meaning, and this competition among the states of the Central Asia, to me, it's 5 states, former Soviet Union republics. The competition should be there, because we know when we have rivalry, desire to sprint ahead, so it's an impetus to grow, and we definitely observe it in the Central Asia. But let me draw your attention to one important fact, that is geographic proximity of those states and historical, common historic background. Hundreds of years together, development also in decades in one state, and certainly they left the people with certain habits and mentality, and those hundreds of years linked us together economically in a humanitarian way. And in human respect, we have very many relations as friends, as relatives, and myself personally, as I was born and grew up in Central Asia. I know this region very well. It's close to my heart. And for me, as the chairman of the executive committee of CIS, we have 11 member states nowadays, and suffice to say that out of 11, 6 states are Muslim states, and 5 of them are within the Central Asia kind of coalition, and certainly it influences the composition and activity and interaction of those states, but still their geographic proximity and historical common background call to us so that we wouldn't compete but interact. And lately we have seen many forums along with ours about Central Asia. Recently we had a big forum in Kazan about Central Asia, then a video format, a format organized by our Kazakhstan friends last month, and we discussed this topic vividly. And I remembered I recall one saying from one Kazakhstani politologist who said that, yes, we can somehow change, attempt to separate ethnically or nationally, but we can never be separate geographically. Geographically, it's God's will that we are neighbors, and we need to build good, kind neighbor relations, like good neighbors. And I told you, I keep close watch, I monitor the situation and development of those Central Asian countries, and I'm sincerely happy about the movement forward, and I actually am I get emotional when I see difficulties in those countries, and I get sad when something wrong happens. Unfortunately, it does once in a while. So we are trying to do everything now to facilitate positive development and collaboration, and for the development of those countries. As a chairman of Executive Committee of CIS, I'm happy that the leaders of those countries have the same thinking. And I attend regularly their meetings of the leaders of the top level, and in a close circle and in wide circle. And I have been holding this post for over 10 years, and I have never heard from anyone something like, we don't need this CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States. It's just the opposite. Leaders keep saying that we need both to keep this Commonwealth, but to do everything to raise efficiency of this integration union. It's only that then it will have a chance to develop, to survive, to go on, if it is interesting for the citizens of Central Asia. And the Executive Committee and Russia as a leading member in this CIS certainly have an ambitious goal to make this Commonwealth attractive for the CIS states. And so I advocate certainly collaboration, interaction, and within this end for healthy competition. And I thank the IMMO for arranging this wonderful event and inviting competent participants to this session. We know most of the participants. People have been studying, working on the integration problems for a long time in the Eurasian region. And I cannot but mention one more trend, the regionalization tendency. As for globalization, we heard a lot about it. Globalization is a given thing, we know by default it's happening. But regionalization helps to join forces of the states within a regional group to address regional problems. And to substantiate it, we can see that in CIS, along with this CIS, there are other integration groups of states that collaborate more closely in some area, like Eurasian Economic Union, we call it EIS, Eurasian Economic Union, or CSTO, with the priority in security. And in Eurasian region, we also have SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, with 9 member states of the Commonwealth. And it's BRICS as well, the regional union. Why am I mentioning them? Because it is the proof that regionalization is a trend of present times, and it's natural. And regionalization means joining forces, cooperation, because no regional organization will be functional unless it deviates from the principles of improving cooperation and interaction. So I'm afraid I have taken too much time in my welcome address, and I would like to now pass the floor to our guests. They have all been introduced, and Eldor Aripov, director of Institute of Strategic Research from Uzbekistan. He's a prominent diplomat, used to be a deputy foreign minister and first deputy secretary of the Security Council. Has great experience in our area. So let me pass the floor to you, Mr. Aripov, from the position of Uzbekistan. That I'm happy to know that it's accelerating and widening, expanding participation internationally. I can see active contacts of the president and other leaders of Uzbekistan internationally, and multiple meetings of the president of Uzbekistan with the neighbors. And I know that the goal is to improve the relations and give them the new impetus for development. And I believe in the 11th, 12th, there will be a visit of Shavkat Mirziyoyev, president of Uzbekistan, to Tajikistan. I know that he has already visited Turkmenistan this year, and they also stay on the phone. Every few weeks, they call on the phone and discuss things among themselves with the neighbors. Uzbekistan now is active in facilitating the border conflict between the neighbors, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. And everyone, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. First, let me join your words and thank and express my gratitude to IMMO for invitation to come here to speak and to speak in the offline mode and talk, in person to my colleagues, not through the monitor. And thank for organizers, including the special session on Central Asia into the panel. And it really reconfirms what you have just told, that the region enjoys higher and higher interest because of the things happening inside and what's happening around Central Asia. And I would, as one of the representatives on behalf of Central Asia, I would like to talk not so much about competition or partnership of external forces in the region, but share what's happening in the Central Asia itself. What are the processes that develop there? Following up on what you have told us, and better regional partnership, better collaboration that we have been observing over the last 5 years in the Central Asian region. So the basics of this trend was started in the conference in Samarkand, and this conference all the foreign ministers of the regional countries came to this conference, and after the conference, very important communiqué was signed, the minutes, where the countries declared their intention to strengthen the regional cooperation and address the issue and solve disputes of the agenda through collaboration. And then this declaration actually was developed further into the special UN resolution, whereby the international community supported this trend to regionalization in the Central Asia. And I believe the proper question to ask is why exactly at that time this opportunity arose to activate regional collaboration. What were the reasons? What was the impetus to launch this process? In my view, it's important to identify several key factors. First is, I believe that this is the new regional course of Uzbekistan, new regional strategy of the President Shavkat Mirziyoyev, who made this political decision to turn the page in the Central Asian relations, to break those stereotypes and prejudices and negative trends, and the principles of searching of mutually acceptable, reasonable decisions on all acute matters should be the main one. And then this approach turned out to be very useful in terms of in addressing border matters, water use, energy exchange. And so now in the region, we observe absolutely new, fresh political atmosphere. And the second factor was kind of maturing of the region, because in the first years of independence, the countries were just concerned with identifying, shaping their sovereignty and drawing the borders, the contours, and any conversation about some kind of regional approach and matters were often perceived with a grain of salt of concern. And now, 30 years down the road, all those fears are behind us, and it's the other way around. The Central Asian countries, as I believe, feel the need to protect both national interest and the regional, common regional interest, addressing regional problems that require coordination and consolidation of forces. And now the Central Asian countries develop certain understanding of common kind of common whole. Each country is a piece of something that is a whole, and responsibility not just for your own country, but for everyone, for the whole region. And another important factor is economic benefits. So over the last 5 years, through this new political atmosphere in the Central Asia, regional trade is burgeoning, has been burgeoning. Investment attractiveness is rising, tourist attractiveness and tourism attractiveness. And you can see it with unaided eye that a very interesting trend for development of this regional and industrial cooperation. For instance, together with Kazakhstan, in Kostanay area, we assemble Uzbek-made cars or special purpose equipment with Tajikistan. And there are many cases of that kind. Recently, we had the new Kyrgyzstan president who visited us, and after that we signed a cooperation plan in the industrial cooperation, which includes approximately 60 projects for a total amount of $500 million.
And that's very much in demand. These projects that both parties are interested in. Then some metrics. So then 2016 to 2019, because in 2020 there was a slight decline, so the regional trade went up 56%. And even the turnover, Uzbekistan with the Central Asian countries has grown twice. And so during the pandemic it went down 50%, but from Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan the trade volume even last year went up. And then there is a great deal of interest of investors. 2016, 2019, so then the incoming investments went by 40%. The share of Central Asia in the total volume of attracted investments from 1.6% to 2.5%. Then tourism from 2016 to 2019, the number of foreign tourists who visited the Central Asian countries went up twice. And yes, with Kazakhstan, we are concluding our negotiations to coordinate the Silk visa, so-called, that will allow the visitors, they can visit both Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan if they get this visa. I hope that other countries of the region will join this initiative. Then another interesting point, so this trend for regional interaction cooperation was supported by the people of the peoples of the Central Asia, and so then Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. So there were a lot of questions that lacked coordination. So there were lots of customs points were closed, and people could not visit their friends and the graves of their relatives across the border. Now these borders opened up, and the number of visits in the Central Asia in the last 4 years went up 4 times. This is very telling. And then from Tashkent you can get to any state of the Central Asia using any means of transportation. May it be air, bus, personal car. So because it's for the Central Asia, it's a big breakthrough. And another very important point, this trend for the regional cooperation and bringing us together, supported by our partners. Sergei Nikolaevich was saying that the new formats, so Central Asia plus this format appeared, then Central Asia plus Russia format, and became successful, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so they identified strategic priorities of their cooperation in this format. All this allowed us to launch a very important regional mechanism of cooperation. So consultative meetings of the heads of the state. So this new site for the dialogue that allows the leaders of the countries to meet and discuss issues of mutual concern. And so then ability to sign a document on friendship and cooperation, a regional agreement. So we used to sign them only on bilateral basis. Then there are regional sites, Central Asian Economic Forum, Export Forum, and even during the pandemic, these mechanisms that have already been launched, they proved their efficiency and proved their effectiveness, and that helped the Central Asian countries to help each other and address issues of logistics, transportation, and bringing the residents back from other countries. Then I'd like to digress and say that I'm not just painting a beautiful idyllic picture, because in the relations between the countries of the Central Asia, lots of unresolved problems. There was very acute incident at the Kyrgyz-Tajik border. There was a very serious event, but even this event president proved that all the mechanisms that have already been launched allow to take care of the acute phase of this conflict. And because it immediately just was escalated to the level of presidents and the leaders of neighboring countries immediately got in touch and helped to resolve these contradictions. That's why these mechanisms so they allowed to smooth out this conflict. And I'm confident that this trend for the regional cooperation is quite sustainable and will continue to strengthen it. Meanwhile, the processes of Central Asia going regional, then it's important for. So we're adding to the agenda, strengthening regional cooperation, not only within the Central Asia, but between the Central Asia and the Southern Asia. So we talk about new opportunities opening up from the viewpoint of the development of investment, economic, transportation, communication, business. That's very important for Central Asian area. And to discuss these issues in June, on the initiative of our president, we are holding a big forum dedicated to the interaction between the Central and the Southern Asia, and we welcome every friend and partner to participate. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now, so then the speaker mentioned that Uzbekistan is not only thinking about itself and the near neighbors. So the cooperation goes further, and it's expanding. And so this active cooperation in recent years of the state, and when we talk about the Turkey, Turk language community, many meetings have taken place, and so the most recent one was in a hybrid video online-offline format. And there's a mountain Turkestan, which is the southern Kazakhstan. So the city is a sacred city for the Muslims, and even the name of the city suggests its sanctity and unites the people around it. So this cooperation goes on, and so we pay attention to the rising activity of Turkey and improving relationship in Turkey and the representatives of Turkish-speaking nations. And as a good proof of that, so there's going to be a visit of the president of Kyrgyzstan, Mr. Japarov, to Turkey. So and during this meeting, it's been announced already, and so then some important agreements have been signed already, and it's an upcoming year. So we can give many examples of that. So very active involvement of Turkey in the decision of the Karabakh event problem, and Turkey participated actively. And then a great deal of attention is attached to the improvement of the relationship with improving relations with Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey. Recently there was a visit of the president of the Tajikistan, Mr. Rahmonov, to Pakistan, and where they reached certain agreements about the strengthening of their relations. And we have a specialist on the region of the Middle East, on the Middle East region and the Southern Asia, if you will. And I hope that you won't prove me wrong. I would suggest that we have a look at the southern part of the Middle Asia, and let's talk about the cooperation of the Central Asia with their southern neighbors. I would start with general issues, because the Central Asian countries' relations with the Middle East, so they reflect the general trends of this, when this region is coming out onto the international arena. So, which I don't like the word crossroads. So then competition or partnership. It's obvious that the Central Asian states don't have this choice, because they want both, and so we can only just calibrate some international priorities, but certainly we're not talking about bifurcation, and we're not talking about a sharp choice that they have to make and they have to face. So when we talk about the crossroads, that's not a new idea. So in 2015, the European program Save World published the report titled "Central Asia at the Crossroads: The Changing Role of China and Russia." So here, the choice kind of was imposed on them between that they have to make between Russia and China. So which has nothing to do with reality and cannot have. And that's why let's abandon the word crossroads, and let's see what's new we have and how it will impact the international priorities, selection of the allies and interregional alliances. I get the impression that in recent years, and Tahirovich was talking about that. So we managed to smooth over many issues, challenges, boundaries, water use. So that they have not yet been fully addressed, but still they're being addressed. And then the interstate agreements do not guarantee the absence of negative events between the border populations, and so that's when the arguments turn into military conflicts. And so the most recent, we hope that the Tajik-Uzbek conflict will not repeat itself. But this is what happens on land, on the ground. And this is why more open cooperation of the state on bilateral state will help to accelerate taking care of these issues. There are some systemic issues, and systemic issues can contribute to the fragmentation of the region. And talking about regional cooperation, and there's a double meaning as well, because this regional cooperation becomes more mature and better thought over, and because they are every country is trying just to pursue their national interests, and these national interests cannot possibly coincide between the neighboring states. And generally, so the new social, political, and economic reality certainly, and some shifts at the global level, all these things, one way or the other, dictate to the Central Asian states a new course to develop more official and more technologically appointed, mutually beneficial bilateral relations. So this is one of the main signs of the maturity of the state. And the states of the region, so they act as similar components, although they have a joint history, joint elements of culture, but they are not the only ones that unite the world, that unite these countries together. So there's purely very well formulated interests of each state. Then relations with the external, international So there have been some changes of the balance of interests, because the role of exterior international players is very high, and multi-vector nature of the relationship between the international and the domestic states at a very high level. Then modernization, using state-of-the-art technology, high-tech investments in human capital, and so all this certainly increases their dependence on large outside players that can provide all these things. And so there's then the gap between the different Central Asian countries, a political and economic gap, and it becomes more and more pronounced. So what's important? It has always been the case, but the new thing is that now, so we the relations, when there's not so much conflict, the international relations are projected upon the Central Asian states as well. That's why we need to get more flexibility. We need to maneuver, navigate through the difficult points and the relationship between the global players. But certainly is the confrontation between the United States and China, which is still there after Biden came to power. And so there is an opinion that and this road and belt were the mechanism of Chinese control over Asian development, then it would actually repeat the project of Trans-Pacific Partnership that could become the interest of containing China. And so that's why one road, one belt, it's outside, it has its own value, but I think that the economists will talk much more professionally about that. We need to say that the relations of China with Central Asian states, they appeared new nuances, and so security comes to the fore, and China is one of the leading exporters of weapons and military support. And so then the United States are present in the region as well, especially it may increase after they withdraw their forces from Afghanistan, but American soft power plays a great deal of role. If we just go to the regional Middle Eastern plane, then certainly the competition between Iran and Turkey is going to exacerbate, but it will touch upon not only the relations with Central Asian states, but it will influence the position of the global players. A new element is the interest of the Central Asian states in transport and logistic breakthrough to the new markets of Asia. And Afghanistan, in this context, becomes a problem. At the same time, it can provide certain resolutions if the situation stabilizes there. Although there is a question to what extent is possible. Here we have new opportunities for the cooperation, economic cooperation. So a great role could be played by the Russian railways, which are a participant of constructing a new road, Kabul-Peshawar road, and they can join they join this project. Kitai, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan. Summing it all up, we can say that, in my view, the states of the Central Asia, they call for so they act as countries having great deal of experience, political experience, and the new and they are very conspicuous at the international stage. And since we have Primakov's readings, we always remember a number of concepts that were brought out by Mr. Primakov. And so when he was asked what's the main sign of a great power, he was saying that it's when your country is needed by other countries, when they want to do business with it. And I think that it is true not only of great powers, it is true of any other state. And the states of the Central Asia are exactly the states with whom everyone wants to do business with. Thank you. You paid attention to the fact that she in her presentation so the importance of economic cooperation of the Central Asian states. It is true that so the economic cooperation is the prevailing most important basis for cooperation, economic cooperation, and so there are many stakeholders who are interested to develop relations with the Central Asia countries, Central Asian countries. This is obvious. So they were named China already. So they're interested in to develop economic cooperation with the Central Asian countries, and there is a lot of proof of that. And many of you know about the considerable contributions that China made in the development of economic development in Tajikistan, both in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. They're helping a lot. And so this influence of China, economic influence of China is on the rise in the Central Asia. But on the other hand, it's natural. China is growing, and such a big, powerful country, so cannot step aside in building relations with their closest friends and neighbors. And so then this project, so One Belt, One Way, One Road, they participated in the development of this project. And I want just to point out that so all of us were represented at a big forum in Beijing that was named One Road, One Way. And China's made a very interesting proposal about on the implementation of this project, One Belt, One Road. And so a few areas of the Silk Road going through Russia, going through Central Asia, all the way to Africa, and down to the EU countries. And they were very lucky that among the participants we have two economists. One of them, I have already introduced him to you, is Mr. Kalimbetov. He's a very experienced economist. Then he's a graduate of MGU, Moscow State University. Am I right saying that or not? And for me, that we have been in contact. Since he was Minister of Economic Development, that's when we made friends and communicated. And then the Minister of Economic Development of CIS. So he knows this subject matter of economic cooperation between the Central Asian countries. And that is why I would like to give you the floor. Please share with us your ideas. Over to you. Thank you, Sergei Nikolaevich. Yes, I can hear you well. I'm very happy to be present at one of the sessions of Primakov readings. And so the subject that I have touched upon, and if I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I can say that partnership and competition, partnership with the elements of competition, and that's what I would say. And as it was correctly mentioned, so the changes in the political and economic reforms that are taking place in Uzbekistan now, they opened up new opportunities for the regions of the Central Asia. Let me remind you that today the Central Asia is about 60 million people, and according to the Boston Consulting Group, in 20 years' time, so there could be more than 100 million people. That's a big consumers market, and that has not yet been properly tapped for the global economy, and because Kazakhstan was a landlocked country, Uzbekistan is a landlocked country, and many issues related to connectivity. Kazakhstan has done a lot of work and within the framework of all the initiatives that you mentioned. And so then Belt and Road and 1,000 kilometers of railroads have been built and connected to the boundary of China. So they are now heading for the Caspian Sea ports and for the Russian Federation. And this connectivity will allow us to participate in the connect to take part to help ourselves of the largest economies. This is European and Chinese economy, about $700 billion, and certainly the lion's share goes maritime, but at the same time, the land trade is growing up as well, and here we participate.
Should we look at the huge several $trillion of imports? Like the European Union and China, this is another good opportunity. The second, the research of Boston Consulting Group confirms that over the next 10 years, the region will attract approximately $70 billion. Certainly, there will be internal competition for final destination, but it's still going into the region. And we saw the trend that this opening economy of Uzbekistan and opportunity and liberalization of trade, foreign trade and market reforms actually create another image of our region, and we're happy about those changes. I want to confirm that these are very serious changes, both at the personal level for our leaders and at institutional level between the governments. I attended the government meetings, the leader meetings, and I can say that now all the matters are addressed in a working manner with very good setting and in amiable atmosphere, and we understand that the opportunities in Uzbekistan are the opportunities for the whole region. And today we spoke about the work done by Uzbekistan in search of the new markets and indeed the building of new routes to Afghanistan and Pakistan ports and to multi-billion markets actually. And I think that will create new opportunities for the Uzbekistan and other countries of Central Asia in a wider sense for the whole Eurasian Economic Union. That's one opportunity, though certainly it is not easy. There are many geopolitical difficulties, and so we cannot expect quick wins, but we are still optimistic about it. And speaking about the consumer market in Central Asia and demographic trends, here we have a good chance for the countries of the region and Central Asia and Eurasian Economic Union, including those that we consider as the entry point to the market. And Uzbekistan as an observer in the Eurasian Economic Union, I believe for us all it provides a wonderful chance, good chance. So the end give us a synergy effect. And so Central Asia interaction, the 5+1 that Sergei Nikolaevich mentioned, initiative, the One Belt, One Way, I still want to add that this is a serious initiative that allows us to be on one hand on the transit route, on the other hand to get access to the Chinese market. And this is a very good opportunity for export-oriented industries of our countries. And those big mega trends that we observe in the region will certainly boost the economies of the countries. That's the super cycle for the commodities market, including oil and gas, end of cycle, then the new 4G technologies, industrial revolution coming, and digitalization. It all creates new opportunities to remove the barriers between our countries. We have great plans between Kazakhstan Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and our leaders keep meeting in many formats, in different formats, and I believe that very soon the Central Asian region will keep opening for the global economy, and indeed the situation is going to have a win-win nature when the new investment will be attracted, and we know that Kazakhstan has done a lot in investing into the structure, new international automobile routes, invested approximately $30 billion over the last 15 years. We created an international financial center catering for the whole region with the principle of the British common law, with an opportunity to receive investment and have access to court, to the international accounting standards, and we have, for instance, let me tell you about the case that's now being discussed in the government, both One Belt, One Way and routes for tourists from other regions and railroads between Tashkent and other cities, other capitals. Great potential, and so within the latest trends on deglobalization, certainly the connection of the region to the northern Eurasia and the post-Soviet space is an important component for our economies, and the opportunity to collaborate with the principles of a mutually beneficial framework. And I'm very optimistic about the better connection of the countries and more intensive collaboration, though our start is very low. We start low, and at this moment our countries, the trade does not exceed 10% between us, the countries of the region, and so there is a way to go. And it's high time we set up the parameters. We know each other very well, and we are really targeted at creating strategic partnership. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, and we really hope that our common efforts and optimism will materialize in specific projects and activities, and with active participation of Kazakhstan Republic in our interaction, especially within Eurasian Union. We met with Karat Ivanich in Almaty in last February, and briefly exchanged our opinions. And recently in Minsk, on the 28th of May, physically, the real offline meeting took place of the leaders of the Commonwealth. And speaking there at this meeting of the leaders of the CIS countries, the Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, Askar Mamin, said that in the Kazakhstan initiative from 2008 by the first president, Nursultan Nazarbayev, about developing a set of measures for CIS countries to ensure food safety. So he came up with a new initiative to upgrade this document and refresh it and work together to prepare this agreement, a document about improving the food safety, and considering the water use. You know, this is a very acute problem in Central Asia, and the new situation in the power sector and the use of power and energy resources, and environment that's becoming more and more relevant. And we have certain contradictions here. On one hand, we need to improve industrial potential needs to be increased without damaging the environment. And this is a very important topic for the Central Asian states. In particular, the construction of nuclear power stations. You know that the agreement is reached on nuclear stations in Uzbekistan, around Tuscan in Jazan area, and now the experts are working on the details of the project. So, construction of nuclear. And now construction of nuclear power station in Kazakhstan is under scrutiny, but environmentalists actually came in, and so far the decision has not been made, but it is still pending. This is a very relevant topic, the nuclear station in Kazakhstan, and it's good that we have an expert here in the area of energy consumption. Deputy Director of IMEMO, Head of the Energy Research Center in IMEMO, Mr. Stanislav Zhukov. Vyacheslav Stanislavovich, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. When I was thinking about the topic offered for discussion, as my colleagues said, I immediately decided that both competition and partnership. It's both. There's no need for the question mark here. And the answer is why so? The answer is on the wall. The priority for the Central Asian countries, the main principle is the imperative of sustainable economic growth, long term. The countries that I will not bore you with many slides, I have very few. And these are the GDP growth rate. So, before the pandemic shock, before the COVID, all the countries of the region demonstrated quite good economic growth dynamics. And I think that no matter how the situation evolves and how many more risks and challenges the countries will face, the support of sustainable economic growth will be in the center of attention. And then, remember, in the end of 90s, early century, in the Asian Pacific region, the idea was very popular. And I think an expert actually from Eurasian Development Bank came up with that, like integration, a bowl of integration spaghetti, when state industries, large companies participate in many overlapping and not overlapping multi-country global initiatives and regional initiatives, multilateral initiatives. This synergy effect from the huge network community will look very attractive if you look at the picture of participation of Vietnam or South Korea, even China, in these integration unions. Indeed, it makes sense. It's a very important factor of supporting sustainability. And as we know, COVID-19 turned out to be a negative economic shock and put new challenges, imposed new challenges to the countries. And after 30 years of independent development, indeed, we have we already have mature and experienced countries, governments, and elites, and we should understand that the countries are different, very different. By GDP of Kazakhstan is 11 times as high as Tajikistan, 7 times as Kyrgyzstan, and 5 times as high as Uzbekistan. And each country certainly addressing the goal of supporting economic growth will consider the national context. For Kazakhstan, the main goal is to get out of the middle maturity trap in order to leapfrog into the more developed countries range. For Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, the goal is totally different. That is to stop and reverse the sliding into the undeveloped state. And because if the state is undeveloped, so immediately the sovereignty gets pressurized. And so one of the shapes of increasing maturity and market nature is the creation in front of our eyes of so-called pair, I mean Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. And this is a two-way road from both countries. Kazakhstan possesses certain investment resources to invest into the neighbors as well, has large domestic market potential. Uzbekistan now requires new approaches and transformation of the model, economic model that was kind of state-oriented, but not market. Did not have a market nature, and that's where we watch growing synergy that will probably become a new growth driver for both countries. And then certainly, if that happens, then both Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan will connect to this process of a closer economic collaboration between the most developed country of the region and the largest country of the region. And so let me tell you that the problem about the drivers of economic growth in the region have become obvious, became obvious much longer than the pandemic shock. For obvious reasons, the region is moving, considering the weak economic potential, is moving along the global trend of the last 5 years. Considering the directions of the FDI, and we shall see then that in 2015 to 19, the share of the region in the cumulative flow of foreign direct investment went down to 0.5%, which is the lowest indicator over the whole period since 2005. And in absolute numbers, the investment shrank to the year of 2010, 2014. There are some specific factors, but the capacity of those countries to concentrate resources and transform them into capital are restricted, and the main growth driver in Kazakhstan was actually inflow of foreign capital. So the countries, so there is hard work ahead of the countries and lots of thinking for the government to do. First I had doubts about those crossroads. That's true. I have been studying this region for a long time, and every 3 to 5 years there will be a new framework developed and offered for the region. But if we don't look at the geopolitical but economic point of view, so you can see that Central Asian countries, this is a common challenge. It's not special about them. It's not, but it's a decarbonization challenge that we mentioned, that yesterday was mentioned at the morning panel on the energy transit. And indeed, if we consider this challenge of decarbonization of economic growth, indeed the economists find themselves at the crossroads.
And let's take and rate the countries about carbon intensity of their GDPs. If we list them, we'll see that 4 countries, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, they are the leaders of carbon intensity. And remembering that in average more than half of the Central Asian countries' exports go to the European countries, the EU countries. It is the EU that is the global leader on the promotion of low carbon paradigm of development. And we know that in within the near 3-4 years, so there will be a new mechanism of so borderline carbon tax will become effective. And even more challenges. The exporters will face even more challenges. The exporters to the EU, and so then it's the green taxonomy, the appearance on new ecological standards for engineering processes, for industrial equipment, that the EU is using in their own interests as a factor of increasing their competitiveness. And so that's why the Central Asian countries, as all post-Soviet state countries, have never paid attention or sufficient attention to the carbon neutrality issues and green gases emissions problem. And that's why we'll have to look for a happy medium between supporting the economic growth and decarbonization. And the last point that I wanted to make, we've been speaking about specific economic, large-scale, long-term projects in the area of infrastructure, industrial projects, big businesses. But there is one factor that was not sufficiently paid attention to, and that could stimulate integration and cooperation, both in the regions and in the region vis-à-vis the external world, and which is the human capital. So luckily, in the largest countries of the region, we still have this legacy, so good system of education as a public institution. It's still there, good education. and there's a network of schools and colleges certainly undermined, like it was, if you compare it with what we had 30 years ago. But I think it is exactly the education component that will inevitably be the driving force of the future development that will help these countries to face the challenges, and that should become the main area of the strategy of national development and other initiatives. And then the integration initiatives with the participation of external players, and certainly they are planning to invest a lot here. Thank you. Thank you, Stanislav Vyacheslav. Very interesting statistics you have spoken about. But my experience of work in the Central Asia convinced me that the statistics or metrics provided by international organizations on the Central Asia, sometimes they are divorced from any reality. Why? Because within the Commonwealth, so we have the CIS Statistics Committee, and so very authoritative, reliable institution. They keep working with our partners the Central Asia to build different statistics to collect so then other different types of analysis. So now just they're trying to resolve the issue of a census. So there was a specific agreement taken at the level of the heads of the states of the Commonwealth to coordinate the activities of the statistics institutions to do this census. And this is all coincides with the UN effort on the global census. And my contacts with our statisticians, they prove my point, saying that we need to pay attention to statistics provided by international agencies. Yes, we should pay. We should not ignore it, but we should not trust it 100%. This will be wrong. So I would like to make this comment. Dear colleagues and friends, this is a very important topic, the topic of energy. Because the energy component plays a very important role in the cooperation between the CIS countries, and there is two states in the Central Asia, which is Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan, and they play an important role the energy cooperation, the kind of, because they have big deposits of resources, and then the interaction there of energy efficiency is extremely important. I can't but mention a very important site like the Caspian Forum, so which was that was organized on the initiative of Turkmenistan. So the first took place in Turkmenistan. Then it was monitored personally by the president of Turkmenistan, and even now he pays a lot of attention to the energy cooperation, and just like the interaction with in the transportation component, with transportation. Why? Because the majority of the countries of the Central Asia, they are transit states, one way or the other, and so this and that's why this cooperation is very important to ensure the sustainable transportation effort, very important for the Central Asian countries. And we have named a number of projects, transportation projects, so laying the railway, And if I remember right, memory doesn't fail me, Nazir Sharif to Peshawar. So there's a project that is being discussed right now. Then there is another project appeal. Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, another project, and I'm just getting closer to our next speaker. So we have a unique speaker among us, among the participants of our discussion. Mr. Unikrishnan, Nandan Unikrishnan. He's a citizen. He's a citizen of India, but he lived in Russia for a long period of time. He speaks Russian perfectly, and it's very important for me as a moderator. He knows the integration challenges, especially the Central Asian integration challenges. So the interaction with India has been traditional for the Central Asian countries, very important. I remembered even the Soviet times, because I was born and grew up in Uzbekistan. So we knew Indian actors, we sang Indian songs, we watched Indian movies. In Tashkent, we had traditionally had festivals of the peoples of Asia and Africa, etc. It was so popular. And so then the heads of India visited Indira Gandhi, and Mr. Shastri was there as well, visited. Even now, India plays an extremely important role in the cooperation between the Central Asian countries. Suffice it to say that I was visiting Uzbekistan, and there was this island in the Aini airport. It was built by our Indian partners, and it is maintained and serviced by the residents of India, by Indians. I was there, so wonderful, wonderful landing strips, very good airport, for both purposes, military and civil. And that when we talk about the cooperation of Central Asian countries, I have listened many times, repeatedly heard when during at different MMO events, and Mr. Unikrishnan has always regularly participated in these events, and he displays a great deal of awareness and knowledge about our things, and I would be very happy to listen to his opinion. Once again, please, over to you. Thank you, Sergei Nikolaevich. Thank you for warm words, and then I will switch over to English after that. It will be easier for me to speak in English, and so because there is not much left to say for me.
Thanking MMO for giving me the opportunity to speak at the prestigious Primakov readings. And I would also like to thank Mr. Dynkin, Mr. Vaitalovsky, and the staff of MMO for the excellent arrangements they have made. Talking about Central Asia, one of the things that strikes me is, despite the kind words that Mr. Lebedev has said, is it would be presumptuous on my part to offer any kind of solutions to the Central Asians, who are a mature, developed people and have their own agency. The second point is that we were discussing this just before we started the session, and when I was saying that I would like to speak last so that I absorb the knowledge of the other speakers, Mr. Lebedev pointed out that speaking last has the advantage of saying that you agree with everyone and thank you very much, let's carry on. I am very tempted to do that, but having thought about it, I believe that I should say a few words about India's role in Central Asia. One is that India views Central Asia as an extended strategic neighborhood. And this is not something that is, because there are historical links, civilizational links, but Central Asia is a region that has direct strategic bearing on the South Asian region, whether it is in terms of security, whether it is in terms of markets, whether it is in terms of energy supplies. There is a humongous amount of cooperation that can be established between Central Asia and India. The other thing that I completely agree with, in fact, I would say that I would be willing to sign Irina Zviagalskaya's paper and pass it off as mine, because there's not one thing that I disagree with in what she said. And I will agree with the fundamental premise that all the speakers have mentioned is I don't think it is right to put it as a choice between integration and competition. I think whether you like it or not, there are going to be both, because integration is to the benefit of all the countries in the region. It was particularly very well explained by the speaker from Kazakhstan. But at the same time, these are developed nations with their own identities. And there are several issues which still are pending resolution. These are historical legacies, whether it is, they are being resolved, but there's still some to be resolved, whether it's borders, whether it is water, and others. So you will have elements of competition, you will have elements of cooperation. And it is there that from India's point of view, I will start with, I mean, given that it's a strategic, extended strategic neighborhood, I will start with noting that, you know, people say that they're asking the question, is this the new great game? Are the great powers going to play a big role in Central Asia? The point, however, is very, very simple, that the great powers are already existing there. I mean, the US has been there physically since 2001. For Russia, this is literally one of the most important strategic areas. China has been developing its links there. There is Turkey, there is Iran. And of course, a country like India, which has great power aspirations, if not capacity yet, it also wants to be in the mix in this region. It is because India does not, for example, I mean, just as an example, we look at, for example, the way China is operating in Central Asia. China's BRI, of course, is a great project, and I think it is absolutely understandable that Central Asian countries want to be part of that process, because it does bring them a great number of benefits. I also understand fully that India does not have the capacity to match what China is doing. So India is trying to participate or increase its footprint through various other formats. You will recall that recently the second session of the 5+1 format that is now popular, where the Central Asians and India had their meeting. India has also, since 2017, joined the SCO. And all these are primary drivers for Indian, particularly the Indian strategic community, to increase its profile, even if not its footprint, its profile in the region. And to my understanding, this is something that the Central Asian countries have repeatedly spoken about, and they want India to be more directly involved. The second reason why India is interested in Central Asia is, of course, Afghanistan. Afghanistan for us is a very painful question, and any instability in Afghanistan definitely reflects on the South Asian subcontinent. And given the recent developments that have taken place in Afghanistan with the US withdrawal, whether it's complete, incomplete, I mean, we can debate that separately, but the point is, you are going to have regime change in Afghanistan. Whether you like it or not, everyone is hoping that there will be some kind of power sharing arrangement. I'm afraid I don't belong to that majority. I do not think the Taliban is interested in any kind of power sharing. They want power, period. And I think the great powers are going to discover that Taliban is not that easy to deal with. But India has concerns on the ground. India was the second largest economic contributor to Afghanistan. India does not want radicalization to take hold again in Afghanistan, because it definitely will affect security, particularly in the northern states of India. So I would imagine that India's intensive contacts with the regional countries will increase. India would want the neighbors of Afghanistan to join hands, and all regional countries to join hands and try and arrive at some kind of stabilizing arrangement. The third reason that I would say that India is interested in in Central Asia, is connectivity. I know that a lot of Indians don't speak about this, but I will speak about it, whatever it costs. The point is, the BRI is a geopolitical project, not just a geo-economic project. And India is petrified about the emergence of a new hegemon in Asia. So there is no doubt about it that India will seek to provide alternatives to this particular project. It also makes a difference because this project has some lines which are running through Pakistan, through disputed areas in Pakistan, which India considers its sovereign territory, and therefore there is a very clear sovereignty issue why India is opposing the BRI. But the options that we have will definitely mean connectivity with Central Asia, because India doesn't have a border. Our neighbor on the northwest does not allow us to transit through that country with goods. So we have to look for roundabout ways of connecting with Central Asia. One, of course, is the project of the North-South corridor, which most Central Asian countries have joined. There is also the Ashgabat arrangement. And of course, recently, Uzbekistan has suggested, and I think India has joined that proposal, of bringing a rail line through Afghanistan into Iran and then connecting it to the Chabahar port. Now, if that does happen, it is some important development for India, because it allows India to continue its aid to Afghanistan, and it also allows transit into the Central Asian region, which, as was pointed out, is developing to become a significant market. Of course, all this depends on stability and the arrangements that exist in Afghanistan. The alternative to that, if Afghanistan is not possible, could possibly be considered in terms of not just the North-South and the Caspian, but moving through Iran to Turkmenistan and then into the rest of Central Asia, plugging into the old Soviet rail network.
Подсоединяя к старой советской железнодорожной сети. И потом еще вот все нужно Иран подсоединять и другие города. Одна из причин вот этой необходимости.
That there are commodities and goods that India can get from Central Asia. And an Indian Ocean exit to the Central Asian countries, I think, would be welcomed by them. And finally, I mean, where does India have capacities? After all, we don't have that much money. The money will have to be spent within the country. So although there is a limited investment capacity, I think India has a lot of skill sets that could be useful for Central Asia. I don't want to be presumptuous and say we can teach you or something. That's not what I want. But it's up to the Central Asians to decide. But we have a very strong digital sector. We have a strong IT sector. And I think these are, given the modern times, these are skills and these are areas in which all countries want to develop their infrastructure. We have a very strong network of education And some Indian universities are already involved, if I remember correctly, in Uzbekistan and are looking at cooperating in other countries. And we have the ability, we also are doing a lot of training of bankers, of civil servants, but this can be expanded. So these are some of the areas where there is development. The other aspect and final point I would like to make is India sees Central Asia as its extended neighborhood. But India is acutely aware of the fact that Central Asia is 5 different countries. And India, at this point, I think, will emphasize bilateral ties over and not treat this region as one big region which has one policy for all. But India will have calibrated policies for various countries. So you'll see Aini Airport in Tajikistan, you'll see us buying uranium from Kazakhstan, and several other projects. I hope that to some extent that explains what India's interest in Central Asia is, and all I can hope is that India gets cooperation from other great powers, Russia and others, to help achieve its aims. Thank you.
Спасибо. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Your opinion. Ваше мнение для нас очень важно.
Your opinion is very important for us to hear. Very interesting estimations and views. What I really omitted in my comments is a matter that's very important for us all. Ensuring security on the southern borders of Central Asia. And I felt it in the presentation or in the speech of Mr. Unikrishna, because we all understand, perceive Central Asia not just like 5 republics that ex-USSR republics, but then you add here most often Afghanistan, Iran, including Pakistan, included here in this region as well, depending on the format. And Central Asia now very often is understood in a wider sense of this word. But no matter how you perceive Central Asia, I believe we are all united in one thing. It's important to ensure security and stability in this large region. And without security in Afghanistan, you couldn't even think about many projects' materialization. In particular, the pipelines going through Afghanistan lands and transportation corridors. And we talk a lot about transportation corridors from north to the south. But once we cannot ensure stability and safety and security in Afghanistan, in the region, and secure peace, and it will be very hard to carry out the projects, to build them. And I believe that the main goal of the global community and primarily the states of the Central Asia is to do everything possible to solve the problem of securing the peace and ensuring security in the region. I'm involved in the solving the problem of security. I can assure the audience and panelists that all the efforts are being done to address this issue, including the contact with other states, primarily the United States of America, NATO countries that ensure in some way security and stability presently in Afghanistan. And therefore, we shall keep working jointly to solve this problem, as it is very important for further development of the whole region. Dear colleagues and friends, I want to thank our speakers for their interesting, important contributions and for sharing with us for the opinions expressed during the discussion. And I'm ready to take your questions, if any. So who is going to moderate? Who has the mic? Who will... Yes, please. Pass the microphone at your discretion. Thank you. Evgeny Korenev from Saratov State University, from the youth session of Primakov readings. So to follow up what you said in the very end, you mentioned NATO, and well, traditionally, even back in 2000, there were ideas that it would be good to interact along the lines of NATO and CSTO, but unfortunately our partners kept, shying away for their own reasons. So if, for instance, we imagine a sharp worsening of the situation in the Central Asia, or something happens, so what do you think should happen so that this interaction actually happens, or do you think it's unrealistic? Well, we are realistic. We cannot consider just some disastrous scenarios for the sake of considering them. I believe that our military and special services probably work on such options, but here we are more to discuss the political and humanitarian collaboration, and we expect kind of positive course of events. But certainly there are contacts, it's no secret, between the military services and special services of the countries of the Central region and CIS countries, and special services of NATO countries. And in Iran, we had contacts like data exchange on the terrorist basis. Several years ago, even sites were provided for transporting military cargoes via the grounds of Central Asia in Manas Airport and Khanabad in Uzbekistan. And now this cooperation, not through our fault, has been suspended, and there are many speculations about relocation of the bases to bring arms to Afghanistan and Central Asian countries. But as to my knowledge, so far, there are no specific plans, and moreover, a number of Central Asian states officially refuted such plans. And certainly collaboration of political authorities that Mr. Lavrov mentioned today, and military agencies is absolutely necessary. I used to participate in such contact. They are very useful. And I really hope that we shall go back to this constructive interaction with in the military area with NATO countries and with the headquarters. You are right in saying that our proposals are on the table. We shall not skid to collaborate. We shall not procrastinate, but we have close cooperation with the CIS countries, military agencies, with the Chinese, China, PRC, and India, Pakistan. We are in touch with them, and those contacts are necessary. And you know that they all have one goal: to ensure peace and stability in the member countries and in the region. So, more questions? Good afternoon. Dear expert, I'm from High School of Economics. Thank you very much for the discussion. Let me follow up on the topic of security, and the question goes to Irina Zvyagintskaya. So you mentioned the troops withdrawal from the Afghanistan. Could you please, yes, repeat? Yes, you mentioned the troops withdrawal from Afghanistan. Could you please share a forecast about what's the look on the growing Islamic threat? And
as well. Thank you.
Спасибо большое за этот вопрос. Ситуация в Афганистане, то я тут полностью согласна с моим соседом по панели, что особо благоприятных прогнозов пока нет.
I agree completely with my neighbor that there is no favorable forecast. You know, Taliban are not a monolith. Yes, there are political, there are just field commanders. They don't coordinate everything. It's a fragmented movement. But most important is that they are not waiting for the troops withdrawal. They have already increased their military operations against the government. So hoping that after the troops withdrawal, something happens. And the negotiations, as you know, failed. And hoping for peace or, normal development has no grounds. But there are some experts who believe that the modern Taliban are not the Taliban that used to be. They certainly have some kind of political wing that positions as speaking on behalf of everyone, and they are interested in legitimacy and the integration, and they are not satisfied with this radical role of their predecessors, but the complete control, or wherever they can control, but they want to be the authority, being in touch with the neighbors. But certainly there is no guarantee for that. No one can guarantee that it's going to be that way. But as for the scenarios and Afghanistan situation, they are not very nice looking. Speaking about terrorism, you mentioned. Yes. We have ISIS there. ISIS came from the Middle East and to Afghanistan, and even they said that they were helped to relocate to Afghanistan. Yes, indeed, it was true. But you didn't bring so many soldiers. Well. So many soldiers from to Afghanistan, because ISIS is a franchise. So the Afghani just call themselves ISIS and ready to fight at those fronts. So this is a serious challenge. It has not disappeared. It's still there. We know that those radicalization elements exist in Central Asia, and they exist and they evolve, and it's a very important social problem, not just security, it's a social problem. So saying that everything will be fine after the troops withdrawal would be wrong. The only thing I can add is that I don't think there will be peace or Taliban will have total control over the whole land of Afghanistan. I believe there will be resistance, and we may be back to the scenario of end 90s when Russia, Iran, and India support a certain coalition of Ancha-Massoud, but then it depends on the people, on the leader to be. But certainly there will be resistance. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Unfortunately, our discussion time ran out. We even exceeded our limit, and in a nutshell, drawing the line to, well, summarizing the speeches and the answers, I will probably agree to the opinion of Karat Nimatovich, who asked, where does Central Asia go? Competition or partnership? I'm convinced, and my personal experience tells me that Central Asia is selecting partnership, certainly with a grain of healthy competition. So this healthy competition, kind of a contest, is good, is necessary for development, is instrumental, but it should be healthy, positive, based on mutual respect, mutual benefits, as without readiness for collaboration, there may be no cooperation. Cooperation should involve two or more parties. So a step forward, a step to meet each other. And I'm convinced that these countries of Central Asia really selected this way, and they go along with it and are participating regularly in numerous meetings of the leaders of Central Asian countries of any level, from the president, ministers, heads of government. We have so many sites for regular exchange of opinion, and I believe that indeed this way of partnership is in the best interests of our nations and our people. And in a week's time, on the 18th or 19th of June, we have here with us my deputy, I guess on the 19th, the Economic Council. In VDNH, there will be a meeting of vice premiers of CIS countries responsible for economic cooperation. The agenda has already been approved, and we shall discuss deeper economic collaboration of CIS countries. As far as I know, all Central Asian countries and the neighbors are invited to the large economic forum in Tashkent in mid-July. And the president of Uzbekistan will attend, and the forum will speak about the security in the region and cooperation as well. And so I can say that in CIS, there is no week without meetings of representatives of various levels and industries on improving, deepening, and widening our cooperation. I recommend that if you're interested, go to the website of Executive Committee of CIS. It's easy to find. Executive Committee of CIS, or in English, CIS, you just key in CIS and CIS info, and you will immediately get huge volume of information about daily work in the CIS and in Central Asia. And more than half of this information is statement, information, news about Central Asia. So you're most welcome. I invite you. Marhanat, that's in Asian, yes. If you're interested, please visit our websites, and you will know a lot that Central Asia is heading toward cooperation and development. Thank you.
Дамы и господа, сессия «Российско-американские отношения. Есть ли шанс снижения напряженности?» начнется в 17:00. Dear ladies and gentlemen, panel discussion, US-Russia relations, any chances for de-escalations, starts in 5 minutes.